Yeah, not only did I pick the Eagles to win that division, but if you read my bold predictions for the
Yeah,
site,
yeah, I saw it. I want. That's what I was going to segue into here.
I had them as the #1 seed in the NFC, and it's for a multitude of reasons. One, I just highlighted, right? Like they are, they are in a conference that's much more wide open and up for the taking than I think the AFC.
Got Tyler Sullivan in the house, NFL writer, CBS Sports. You can catch him on CBS Sports HQ. Tyler was busy last night. I think he's on 4 hours of sleep too. How you been, Tyler?
What's going on, Jeff? Long time no see. We were burning the midnight oil.
Yeah, we definitely were last night. Just an early impression on that Bills blowout win over the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, they were as advertised, right? They are the Super Bowl betting favorites for a reason, and they took it to the defending champs. So, again, for me, it wasn't perfect for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, there was a bunch of turnovers for them. I thought Josh Allen was sharp out of the gate. Did have one of his 2 interceptions was on him. The other one was basically Isaiah McKenzie handing off the football to the Los Angeles Rams. But ultimately, their ceiling is a lot higher than what we saw last night, which is a scary proposition for the rest of the NFL. You got to remember, they didn't have Tre'Davious White in this game. They're all-pro corner. Kaiir Elam, their first-round cornerback, barely played for whatever reason. So once those guys mature and or get healthy, this team's going to be that much more dangerous. Because if all of a sudden they're giving opposing quarterbacks more time to hold the football, we saw last night that front can absolutely attack the quarterback.
I still can't get over the fact they beat the Los Angeles Rams in their building by 21 points with 4 turnovers.
Well, was it their building? It didn't feel like it for a second.
Yeah, no, it felt like a Bills Mafia game, honestly.
I mean, as much as they were talking pregame about, this is turning into a Dodger town, Laker town, now also a Rams town, Bills Mafia took that place over, it felt like at times. I mean, they really did. But, it is impressive, obviously, going to the West Coast, going on the road in that environment. It was something that I was harping about all pregame was that the defending champions in this spot historically have done extremely well, 18-3 straight up since Super Bowl 34. This is more often than not a gimme for these teams. The juices are pumping, the environment's crazy. You just dropped a banner, and that should lead you to a win. But the offensive line for me has issues. It was surprising to see how little the receiving game was outside of Cooper Kupp. It felt like he had a 50% target share, and as good as Cooper Kupp is, you need a little bit more. I mean, Allen Robinson is supposed to be the de facto Odell Beckham, Robert Woods of this offense, and he had 1 catch for 12 yards. I mean, that's just not good enough.
In the game.
Exactly. I mean, not speaking as a disgruntled fantasy owner or anything like that, but yeah, no, come on, 1 catch for 12 yards. Come on, man.
Oh, our producer Tone and Stephon Diggs. I had Josh Allen, so I'm in a pretty good mood tonight. But overall, I wanted to mention Allen Robinson a bit to you because I know in Philadelphia, and I can say this with truth, the Eagles were after Allen Robinson. And, it was, I don't know how deep in talks they were. Jordan Rodriguez, the Athletic, said they actually were pretty deep. And then the Rams just kind of swayed him away. I'm kind of glad the Eagles avoided Allen Robinson, traded the first-round pick, and got AJ Brown. That's looking really good, at least for week 1.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that too, just because obviously AJ Brown, a younger, more upside type of player. For me, the whole storyline with Allen Robinson was, well, he's been productive with subpar quarterbacks. And if all of a sudden you give him a Matthew Stafford, a Jalen Hurts, that's going to be the best quarterback he's ever played with in the NFL. So, when you start to kind of go down that road and say, all right, what is the ceiling here? What could he be? But there is that other side of the coin where, all right, again, I don't want to overreact too much to week 1, and that can happen. But, was it all, the quarterbacks last year in Chicago, or was something different? Is he on a downturn? Is he kind of swinging down in his career as opposed to being an ascending player like we all think AJ Brown is going to be going forward with the Philadelphia Eagles? So, I mean, that is, unfortunately for him, because again, it's just 1 game, but we're going to rip it to shreds. But that's going to be part of the narrative now. As much as we were talking about him upgrading at quarterback, Well, okay, you didn't produce out of the gate. And it really didn't even feel like Matthew Stafford was looking to you all too much. And so for me, that's going to be something that we look at here. Is it going to be him upgrading a quarterback, or is he kind of a descending player when we didn't think he was going to be?
Were you concerned over Matthew Stafford's elbow? Maybe if it was the lack of training camp reps he got, or just he's not fully 100% yet?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we're going to watch all year, right? This whole elbow baseball style injury. It's not common for a quarterback. I mean, it kind of feels like people who are following this injury a little bit more closely and are more familiar with it are almost a little perplexed because they keep saying, yeah, it's almost like he's playing baseball. Like it's not, this isn't a quarterback. This isn't a shoulder injury where you see all the time, rotator cuffs or something like that. I mean, this is kind of an elbow thing. It's just a little bit abnormal for a quarterback. And I know our editor, Kevin, talked about it last night before we logged off. He didn't really throw down the field that much in this game, So, yeah, it's going to be something that we follow throughout the year. For me, I didn't think it was going to be too much of a factor in week one. I thought this was going to be more of a December, November, weather gets cold, the season, the reps, all of that stuff kind of piles up. And then it starts to wear and tear on you. But if all of a sudden they're managing him now and they're managing him in preseason and training camp and giving him limited workload, and we're talking about load management for a quarterback, yeah, that's obviously concerning for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. They want to go back to back.
I was kind of laughing over the game last night. I was kind of thinking, okay, what is Tom Brady thinking right now? Like all of a sudden you went from the Rams are probably the best team in the NFC to, oh, hold on, it might be the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conference is wide open. I mean, as much as we talk about the AFC being absolutely loaded and, the Bills at the top, but you still have like the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Broncos, I mean, basically the entire AFC West. You have teams that are in the discussion there, but clearly Buffalo showed last night that they're heads and shoulders. In the NFC, it's a little less murky. It's a little more murky. I mean, it's, obviously the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be in there, the Bucks, the Packers, the Rams, I think will still be in there. I'm not, putting them in the grave just yet. But yeah, if you're Tom Brady for any one of these contending teams in the NFC, you look at this and say, all right, the lane is clear for us to, not only take down the defending champions, but there is a path for us to realistically get the number one seed and make some noise in the postseason and come out of the conference.
I happened to notice too when I was looking at all our picks. I think the Eagles swept the NFC East when we all made the picks this year. What do you like about this Eagles team?
Yeah, not only did I pick the Eagles to win that division, but if you read my bold predictions for the
site,
site,
yeah, I saw it. I want. That's what I was going to segue into here.
I had them as the number one seed in the NFC, and it's for a multitude of reasons. One, I just highlighted, right? Like they are, I think, they are in a conference that's much more wide open and up for the taking than I think the AFC. And you look at their schedule. It's just, an easy schedule for them to pile up wins. Not only do they have a good roster, I think an ascending quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who I think is going to be much better than Nick Sirianni under year two in that system. And obviously you get AJ Brown in there, which is obviously going to help. But you look at their schedule, you look at their opponents, it's the second easiest schedule in the NFL when you look at projected win totals. I like looking at that a little bit more than last year's win total, win percentage, just because they're totally different teams. And when Vegas looks at these odds and makes these projected win totals, they're looking at the 2022 team, that year's team, and they're projecting whether they're going to be good or they're going to be bad. And so when you collect all of that up, I feel it's a little bit more of an accurate portrayal of what the road is going to be like for these respective teams. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's going to be really, really easy, at least, in that regard. So for me, that allows you to pile up wins. You're in a very winnable division. So again, I just think that they're gonna, really, pile up a lot of wins here as long as Jalen Hurts takes the steps that I think he will.
Well, speaking of Jalen Hurts, I got to see him in camp multiple times this summer. I thought he looked good, and I'm not a training camp stats guy. I'm just not. I don't believe in that stuff with practice. I know the Patriots beat writers are big in that whole thing with Mac Jones, but just from what you've seen out of Jalen Hurts, what do you like about him and what don't you like about him?
Yeah, no, I mean, extremely sharp as a, at least what we saw in the preseason. Again, like we say, preseason, take with a grain of salt. But what we saw was a much more polished passer. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's Justin Herbert, but it was much better than what we saw in the years past. And again, I think that there is something to be said for, and it's a tough comparison because, again, I don't want to put him in the same breath as Josh Allen, but I do wonder if the addition of AJ Brown is going to have a similar effect to what Stephon Diggs had for Josh Allen when he arrived in Buffalo. It was a legit weapon, number one weapon that opposing defenses had to account for. The defense turns their attention over to that guy. And not only can he throw the football to other places with easier windows, but then all of a sudden that ability to run with your legs now is another wrinkle in that offense. We saw last night that opposing defensive players, defensive backs, linebackers, as much as they're covering their guy, they also have one eye on Josh Allen as he's ready to run out of the pocket. I think that could be the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Now, again, the thing that you worry about is, does he regress as a passer? We know that he's legit as a runner and can really make plays with his feet, but can he translate from what we saw in the preseason and really the first half of last year? Can he turn that into a full season as a passer?
You've seen AJ Brown up close playing at times in the AFC. What does he bring to this Eagles team?
A legit number one. I mean, this is the best cast that Jalen Hurts has had in his career. I mean, not too long ago, I feel like we were talking about Travis Fulgham as the guy for Jalen Hurts.
I wrote an article on how Travis Fulgham was the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I had stats to back it up. It's crazy.
I mean, it really is. And so when all of a sudden now you have AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert at the tight end position, it is a much more sound offense. And again, it's in the addition of AJ Brown, I think slots those other guys into more realistic roles. I think Smith could be a number one. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility, but I think he is right now the T. Higgins to AJ Brown's Jamar Chase. I think that that's probably what we're looking at, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, that is quite the 1-2 combo, 1A, 1B, if you want to look at it that way, at the receiver position. But the addition of AJ Brown to me just takes this offense to another level. Like I said, I think that this could have a Stephon Diggs type impact on Jalen Hurts in that whole offense overall, just because, again, it's one of those guys that can take on a number one cornerback and still win.
We both know football's won in the trenches. We know the Eagles have a good offensive line, but the Dallas Cowboys do not. And to me, I still think they're going to be a playoff team, but that just really scares me with their chances to actually make a run at a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, as much as we were, talking about them, at one point, multiple points during the offseason, they were the favorites to come out of the division. It feels like it's been more recent that this Philadelphia kind of wave has come about. And partially that is due to the injuries going on with Dallas. Obviously, the wide receiver position with Michael Gallup, it feels like he's trending in a positive direction, but, we all know it's tough to come back from those injuries. And outside of CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, we don't really know what's going to be. And like you said, the left tackle spot, we've seen when Smith is not there, how much that impacts this offense and how much Zeke Elliott is not effective, how much Dak Prescott is not able to impact the game. And so for me, that is a massive, massive loss. As much as, that defense could be good with Micah Parsons and Diggs and all those guys, you have to wonder how they're going to be this high-flying offense if their left tackle spot's going to be an issue all year.
Now, with Joe Judge, I got to bring this up because Joe Judge is in charge of your quarterback, Mac Jones. I don't like it. I think Mac Jones can be a really good player in this league, but I just hate what Bill Belichick has done for his guys. And I don't know what he has planned here. Maybe they're not on payroll or something. Maybe he's trying to stash. I don't know. But what have been your thoughts on the whole Joe Judge experiment in New England?
Yeah, it's a concerning development, to say the least, with the Patriots coaching staff. I mean, obviously, going from Josh McDaniels, one of the revered play callers in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball, to now a combination of Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, who neither one have called plays on offense. Neither one has significant experience on the offensive side of the ball. I know Matt Patricia obviously came into the NFL on the offensive side, but really made his bones as a defensive coordinator. Joe Judge, a special teams coordinator. And when you look at what the quarterbacks were doing at their spots when they were head coaches, it wasn't great. For me, when you look at Joe Judge in New York with Daniel Jones, and you've seen him up close and personal in the NFC East, he regressed as a prospect. He was, showed some flashes his rookie year, but everything since has been poor. And even the ownership has said at the time, we've done everything possible to screw this kid up, speaking of Jalen Jones. So when you have a guy now like Mac Jones, you get nervous for the kid. All right, what's this going to look like? And so for me, again, it's not unconventional for Bill Belichick to not have a offensive coordinator in title. That's something that's gone on up here in New England for a while now. Right? They don't really have a defensive coordinator in title. It's Steve Belichick and Gerard Mayo handling the defense. You feel a little bit more confident in that, though, because those guys have had the polishing, the pedigree, one's played in the league and been a legitimate NFL player. The other one has been around the system basically his entire life because of his father. But on the offensive side, there isn't that resume to back up no title. Like if Nick Caley, who was the tight ends coach for the Patriots last year under Josh McDaniels, if he ascended, I think people would feel a little bit more comfortable and say, okay, Josh McDaniels, it felt like a matter of time before he left. There's a guy waiting in the wings on the offensive side of the ball. He's been working with the offense. He knows Mac Jones. He knows the team. And all of a sudden that goes by the wayside and you're bringing in a guy that was a defensive coordinator. And so for me, that's what's concerning. It's not that they don't have an offensive coordinator in title. I've grown to not care about that too much. There's no clear experience. And when Mac Jones is looking to the sideline, he's not looking at a guy who's been there before or knows the offense as well as they should, which is concerning.
Does it feel like Bill's lost a zip on his fastball as a head coach?
I don't know if it's losing a zip on his fastball. Again, we'll have to see, how that goes. But I do think at this stage in his career, he wants to coach alongside the people he wants to coach alongside. Like Matt Patricia is a good friend of his. He has, connections obviously to Joe Judge. I don't know if he wanted to bring in a new up-and-comer Sean McVay kind of clone to run the offense. I don't know if that's what he wants to do right now. You see it. He's got his kids on the staff. He's got former players, former coaches. It's not like he's bringing in new blood. I mean, and if he is bringing in new blood, it's guys he knows or they're sons of guys he knows. So I think that's what we're looking at here. I don't know if it's him losing his fastball or if it's just him saying, you know what, I'm going to run the show anyways. I'm going to make the call anyways. So why don't I just bring in guys that I'm comfortable with, or, ordering around, for lack of a better word, in that regard, instead of somebody who is, a little bit more green, not familiar with how I operate, and I kind of have to work him in.
What are your thoughts on Brian Daboll? Because to me, a lot of people seem to forget he did win 5 Super Bowls with the Patriots. He is a Belichick disciple in every sense of the word, even though he kind of branched out over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and he's another one too with a Nick Saban connection as well. So I mean, you get the Brian Dabolls, and then you get the Joe Judges, and so I don't
know.
No
one knows football like Joe Judge.
I don't know what necessarily that means, but for some it means more than others, I guess. No, I think he's a great, a very, I wouldn't say great obviously just yet, but he's a great offensive mind. I wouldn't say he's a great head coach right now. We don't know that. He's never done that yet. So time will tell in terms of how he'll do with the New York Giants, but I like the hire. I thought that was exactly the kind of guy that they should bring in for Daniel Jones, because we saw, as much as we, praised Josh Allen last night and he's the betting favorite to win MVP, his odds only improved to win MVP after what we saw last night. A couple of years there where he was, questioned as to whether or not he is a legitimate franchise kind of quarterback.
Playoff game against the Texans.
And under Daboll, they were able to cultivate and really bring him along to blossom into the guy that we saw last night, who was just a menace on every, snap. It felt like, whether it was, passing the football or when everything's covered, he can like space jam it and run for a touchdown and extend his arms. So, that's the type of thing that I know Brian Daboll is not there anymore, but that's the foundation he helped set for Josh Allen. And that's the hope that he can do with Daniel Jones, because as much as we kind of, dump all over Daniel Jones and the Giants, he does have that skill set. Now, I don't know if he has that ceiling of Josh Allen, but he does have that ability to run the football, does have a nice arm. Can he put all of that together to be a more complete quarterback and a more consistent quarterback? And with Daboll, I think that he'll have his best opportunity, his best shot to hit his ceiling, whatever that is.
It feels like Daniel Jones is auditioning for another team. I don't think he's going to be the quarterback in the New York Giants after this year, no matter how he plays.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's, insane, but like that's, obviously that's not what we're talking about. If he turns into this, Josh Allen 2.0 and all it needed was some Dayball fairy dust to do it, well then, they're going to be fine. But yeah, there is that, question of, all right, if this isn't a good football team, they'll be in the market at the draft. They'll be looking at guys, whether or not it's and not even at the NFL draft. We saw this offseason, quarterback movement is not out of the realm of possibility. And so if all of a sudden everything else around the quarterback position in New York seems like it's on the come up and he's the one thing that's bringing them down, well, then they'll absolutely look for a new quarterback. And so, that's another one too. Who knows who becomes available? Like, as weird as it may sound, like if Justin Fields becomes available because the Chicago new brass and front office and the new coaching staff wants to move on for whatever reason, that's an intriguing option all day, every day. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like, we've seen weirder things in the NFL. We've seen teams move on from first round picks, especially when there's a regime change in the midst of all of that. So again, that's one that you look at. Obviously, it's already in the NFL. Tom Brady's going to be a free agent if he wants to play till 50. All right, go ahead, go to New York. We'll see what happens there.
We'll be calling them.
Yeah, something along those lines. Jimmy Garoppolo is another one that could be available. So, obviously there's more options than just the NFL draft. But yeah, no, if things don't go well with Daniel Jones, it's very easy for a first-year head coach to say, all right, I didn't draft this kid. It's not my problem. I tried. It didn't work. And let's go in a different direction.
I'm kind of glad you brought up Jimmy Garoppolo here because I like Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance has a very high ceiling, as you well know. But I don't like how Jimmy Garoppolo is basically waiting over his shoulder. The second Trey Lance plays bad, Jimmy Garoppolo is there ready and waiting, and we know what he can do with that team. I don't know. I just don't feel like the 49ers are creating a healthy environment for that young player.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's, that I think was the worst outcome for Trey Lance. If you're a Trey Lance guy, which the 49ers have to be, they traded up, they did all of these things for Trey Lance. You have to set him up for success. It's very similar to what we were just talking about with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. These organizations, the Eagles and the Bills, did everything and are doing everything they can to maximize the potential of their quarterback. They invested heavily in them. They are trying to get the absolute most out of them. And by keeping Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, yes, you negotiated a reworked contract. It's not as big of a cap hit, blah, blah, blah. You're not helping your quarterback. I mean, there's reports already that he was miffed that they were keeping him. Trey Lance was. So, I mean, like already out of the gate, you're not endearing yourself to your starting quarterback. And so you have to wonder what that's going to do when it's a 3rd and 10 and he sails one over Deebo Samuel's head and they're punting for the 5th time in a row. And everybody's looking at the sideline. They go, well, this guy did bring us to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship.
And could have won both.
And could have won both. Why aren't we playing him again? And as fair of a point that may be, that's not going to help the quarterback that you drafted number 3 overall and traded all of these draft picks for.
I feel like Washington has more faith in Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, Tyler Sullivan, Jeff Kerr than the 49ers do in Trey Lance. I keep hearing the same stuff with Wentz. Oh, he's the quarterback we needed, and he's a significant upgrade. But they said that last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick. It just seems like it's all coach speak right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, it's funny because, I think we've talked about it. I know I've talked about it in our Slack chat. It just feels like Washington overplayed their hand this offseason. Like, why did they have to be first in this quarterback bonanza? And if they're first, why did that quarterback have to be Carson Wentz? Because if they played their cards right and just kind of hung back and kind of read the tea leaves a little bit better, you would have seen that. Not necessarily they're going to go after Aaron Rodgers if he became available or like Russell Wilson or anything like that.
Matt Ryan.
But you could have absolutely gotten Matt Ryan. And I think that that's an upgrade over Carson Wentz. I know it's not the better, I guess, maybe long-term option because Matt Ryan's older. But in the immediate, I think that that's absolutely a better option than Carson Wentz right now. What did you see in Indianapolis last year with Frank Reich as the head coach? It's not like, he's working with somebody he's not familiar with. What did you see last year that said, you know what? If we bring him to Washington, we bring him to FedEx Field, we'll fix him. He'll be fine. All he needs is a little Ron Rivera and Antonio Gibson in his life, and he's totally fine. I don't know if I don't see how you can look at that game in Jacksonville last year and say, you know what, this is the guy. I feel comfortable handing the keys over to the franchise too. I would have much rather have seen them be more aggressive at the NFL draft. I'd rather see them be more aggressive at other quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, why weren't they in the Jimmy Garoppolo discussion? I feel like Garoppolo is a better option than Carson Wentz. And this isn't to dump on Carson Wentz. It's just to say for Washington, there were other options available, and it felt like you kind of jumped the gun a little bit too early in this quarterback carousel that we saw this offseason.
They could have got a guy like Kenny Pickett, too. By the way, I love that move for the Steelers. I thought that was the perfect pick for them. I kind of want Pickett starting over Trubisky. I get it. Like, he's had a good preseason. But overall, what are your thoughts on these teams that in the AFC, like a Pittsburgh, for example? They're good teams, but you're just not sure because of that conference.
Yeah, not even really, not that sure because obviously the conference is stacked. I mean, we're talking about like 4 teams in the AFC West that could probably make the playoffs. It's ridiculous. And then there are other teams too, like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals and Baltimore Ravens. Like, that division is stacked. And we're not even talking about a Browns team that at some point they're going to get Deshaun Watson. And for whatever you want to say about Deshaun Watson, and I would agree with you in terms of the stuff you would say about him off the field, as a quarterback, strictly speaking as a quarterback, he is as talented as they come. So they're going to make that team that much more dangerous. And if they can somehow stay afloat record-wise with Jacoby Brissett, they're going to be part of the conversation. And so that's what you look at with teams like, I would say, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins, like those 2 teams. If they can get their quarterback situations right, they have the roster around that position to really make some noise. Like Pittsburgh, they have a great defense. I mean, TJ Watt is that dude that can legitimately wreck a game like we saw Von Miller do last night, Aaron Donald do every now and again, more often than not. And then all of a sudden, the skill position players like George Pickens, for some reason, the Pittsburgh Steelers, better than any team that I've ever seen, can pluck these wide receivers and make them superstars overnight. You have George Pickens, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. The skill positions are there. If all of a sudden Trubisky and or Kenny Pickett can just be whatever best version of themselves they can be, I think that's going to be an improvement of the quarterback that they saw last year and the corpse that was Ben Roethlisberger. And that will make them a sneaky competitive team in the AFC.
Last but not least, does Lamar Jackson sign today on his self-imposed deadline?
I do not think so. I do not think he signs. I think he is looking at a path that Kirk Cousins went down not too long ago in Washington, where it's 5th-year option, franchise tag, eventually hitting free agency, not this offseason, maybe even next offseason. It just kind of feels like this is that situation. And for Lamar Jackson, if he's comfortable with that, well, then he's going to make a lot of money. I mean, you look at what he's making this year, I think it's around like 25 million, 23 million.
I think it's 23.1 exactly.
Fully guaranteed. And then you look at next year. I mean, if he gets tagged, I mean, we're talking about a tag that's probably what? $40 million fully guaranteed. So you're talking about almost making $65 million fully guaranteed in 2 years. And so, again, I think that's what you're looking at. Unless the Baltimore Ravens come out of nowhere, and I don't expect them to do this, but if they're like, okay, here is your Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, fully guaranteed contract that averages $50 million per, then he'll sign that deal. He signed it yesterday. But I don't know if the Ravens are in a position to do that, and I don't know if they want to do that as a franchise.
It's weird too, right, Tyler? Because I feel like he hasn't been in a rush to get this done. It's like, oh, if it gets done, awesome. But if not, this is where I want to be. I don't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's part of the story of not having an agent. I mean, that is a component here. He is representing himself in these negotiations. Nothing new for him in his career. He's never had an agent. I mean, him and his mom have kind of been dealing with all this stuff basically since the draft. I mean, you can remember them two on draft night sitting together on that table, waiting for him to get picked 31st overall or 32nd overall, whatever it was.
They trade with the Eagles again.
And so, this is not uncommon for him, but it's uncommon for, a lot of players in the NFL because, you do run the risk, and we saw this offseason too with Roquan Smith in Chicago. When you represent yourself, you do open the door to get hard feelings, and you get the team is negotiating one way, you're negotiating another. You're negotiating on your behalf, and you're taking it a little bit more personal. And so it's not an agent who's done it a million times and knows the dance and knows the speak and knows how to kind of do this thing and negotiate these. At this point, it's almost a $250 million contract. I mean, this is no small little exchange here. So I do wonder if that's kind of what the snag is, where he's comfortable. He's like, you know what, I'll be fine. I know myself. Where if an agent would be whispering in his ear, being like, listen, as great as you are, and if you continue to play well, you're only going to improve your value. But you do have to understand, you are a mobile quarterback. You make your bread and butter, and you're an MVP for what you do with your legs just as much as what you do with your arm. And that type of play, that style of play, opens you up for more injuries. It's just the way it is. And you're not built like a Josh Allen, who was just this stocky guy. I mean, he was taking so many hits last night. I was getting nervous towards the tail end of the game. Lamar Jackson is not that kind of Cam Newton, Josh Allen, physical kind of runner. He's a little bit more, lean. He's a little bit more skinnier, which again opens you up for more injuries. And so if you're an agent, you'd be whispering into his ear and say, hey, listen, I know it might not exactly be the fully guaranteed contract that you want, but this is generational money that you can get right now, and you'd still be setting the market probably in terms of AAV, and you don't run the risk of getting hurt the second you step on the field in week one.
Tyler, once again, I appreciate you coming on. Had a bunch of CBS guys on this week. Going to have to get you on again. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully next time we're talking, it's going to be about maybe the Giants are 0-2, 0-3, the Eagles are 3. We'll see what happens. Thanks for coming on, Tyler.
I like it. No problem, Jeff.
Yep, that's it. All right, we're going to put a bone in the show right after this.